I wouldn't have sold one property. I wouldn't have been flipping and rehabbing and selling stuff like I was. I wouldn't have been wholesaling stuff off. I wouldn't have been doing none of that.
You turn the whole house into bedrooms and you rent by the room. Anything like that is going to be, successful.
Number one, the one we're talking about today is what, Kim?
Senior housing.
Traditional real estate investing is dead. Robert Kiyosaki and Ken McElroy think this is the solution.
The number one investment in real estate.
Be sure to watch until the end to uncover just how lucrative this housing solution can be.
You got into that education and you ran with it. How many rental properties did you get up to?
Then I think I had 137 then. So I switched from rentals to flipping because I was doing a lot of rehabs. Just I had the knowledge and somebody to actually guide me to what I needed to do. What was my biggest problem? When you don't have the people to back you and guide you through what you need, you actually make a lot of mistakes. You do things that even though I was working in that field where I was dealing with a lot of contractors and getting people on board with doing work and doing that whole thing, I did not have the understanding of not being cheap. Instead of me bringing contractors in to do a lot of the work, I would actually bring friends in, and it was hurting. It was hurting me as far as not getting properties done fast enough, having properties sit vacant too long. That hurts when you don't know the ins and outs of a complete renovation and you trying to do it yourself and to save $1. It hurts you long term.
Yeah, the real estate game is a lot more difficult, I think, than most people realize. And this is why, I'm such a big proponent of group homes because, you're talking about having 137 rental properties. Let me tell you what, even if you just take that number, divide by, just call it 4 or 5, you got 30 rental properties. 30 rental properties is going to be a full-blown nightmare for 9 out of 10 people because they do not have the ability to manage the contractors, handle the vacancies, deal with the tenants, deal with the toilets, deal with all the trash that these tenants are leaving in the properties. And there's really no money in it either. I mean, 30 properties, whether you're in Chicago or even, one of these lower cost areas, probably best case scenario, you're making $6,000 a month net cash flow. And that's assuming everything goes perfectly. It's a hell of a lot easier just to go get 2 group homes.
And you know what's crazy, Andy? Because I had properties already. So I said, okay, I'm gonna turn one of the apartments into a place first, just because you want to test the water and get your feet wet. And I was getting a lot of, I'm not sharing units, I'm not sharing a room, I'm not doing that. I got a lot of that. And when I put my first person in here and saw what I was making off what I was renting the whole apartment for, I was getting that from one person. So it was a no-brainer after that. And it was proof of concept. So I was like, ain't no way in the world I'm renting out traditional again. This makes no sense for that. I have been doing this. I wish I'd have known about this when I had the 137 rentals.
Yep.
I would have jumped all over this. I wouldn't have
Absolutely.
lost one property. I wouldn't have sold one property. I wouldn't have been flipping and rehabbing and selling stuff like I was. I wouldn't have been wholesaling stuff off. I wouldn't have been doing none of that. So now, my problem now that I have is turning down deals. Because every deal I get, I look at it and it says, man, if I turned that into a group home, boy, I will make a mint off of it. And I always think about what Brandon says, that you said, if I have to calculate the return on investment, it's not a deal. So you don't even have to do that, because what I look at now is how many beds can I get in this place? And that's what I look at now. I don't look at the return on investments for the most part. I look at how many beds can we put in here and how many bodies can I get. And
Yep.
then that's what makes me just determine if it's going to be something that I want forward. So you look at it, you get a different perspective once you start understanding. It's a bed count, it's a body count, it's a how many people.
It's the name of the game is heads and beds.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And
So,
and look, and I tell everybody this also. It is heads and beds, but you don't want to go out and buy $400,000 homes or rent $400,000 homes. You need to be operating in B minus and below neighborhoods. That's the name of the game. You want cheap real estate, cheap rent, and maximum number of heads and beds. Plain and simple.
And people that understand the real estate world, they think when they hear that, they say, so I'm changing the demographics. I'm putting low income people in, which low income people bring headaches. These people do not bring you, they needy, they are needy, but they don't bring you the headaches that you would get with your traditional rent. And that's what most people start looking at. My traditional rental, if I'm in a CD class neighborhood or a CB class neighborhood, I'm going to have a bunch of cars. I'm going to get a bunch of headaches. I'm going to have this. I'm going to have that going on. They're going to be tearing my place up, but it's a different class of people. I just don't know how to explain it, but they have a tendency of caring a little bit more than they do because they have been homeless. So they have a tendency of loving the fact that they got a place to put a roof over their head and they don't destroy like you think they are.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're running apartment buildings, mobile homes, houses, duplexes, whatever. These people, even if they're high-end stuff, I'll tell you guys a story. So ran into kind of a friend of mine, and he used to be a commercial real estate broker. So I've known him for a long time. I bought one apartment building from him. And anyways, he was like, hey man, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. And he was telling me how he bought this house in this relatively trendy neighborhood about 5 years ago. So trendy neighborhood, the rent was $2,000 per month. Okay, so I want to paint a picture here. So nice neighborhood, trendy. There's like bars and restaurants around it. He's like, yeah, she just moved out. And then he looks at me. He goes, excuse my language, but I got to tell you. He goes, she fucking destroyed the property. Destroyed it. Wow. Destroyed it. So again, it doesn't matter where you go. These people, high-end neighborhoods, low-end neighborhoods, they destroy these properties. So why not make money out of it in the process? And especially if you're running group homes, you're over there every single day and you got a house manager. So the possibility of it getting destroyed goes down significantly.
Well, I want to dive into this a little bit because it's very counterintuitive probably to a lot of investors to what Donald just said. Think about a real estate investor that has never really heard of this before. Maybe this is the first podcast they've listened to, right? And they hear nightmare stories about Section 8 tenants and low income stuff. And, they think the goal is to just get the nicest property, A class, and, just get the best tenants possible in there. When they hear you guys talking about, no, get properties in C-class neighborhoods, and instead of having, one tenant in there, you're going to have multiple homeless people in the property. So think of the first things that come to mind when they hear that. And now they're hearing Donald say that it's actually easier, right? So why don't we dive into that a little bit? Let's break that down. How is that possible? What systems do you guys put in place? Are there systems? Let's kind of make this clear for the investor type out there.
So what I use is I still use Building. I still use a management software system.
Smart.
So my management software system allows them to, I think I heard Andy say he used Appfolio.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked in Appfolio, Yardi. I've worked in all of the different property managements coming from the field that I've in. So I had to learn how to work in all of the different property management software. So it gives the opportunity to put in complaints as far as work orders if something's not working or something like that. It gives the opportunity to go online and pay rent if they need to pay rent online. They can pay with a credit card, check, a debit card, whatever they need to pay with, they can pay with it. So, and it also gives them the ability to see like their paperwork or whatever because they lose it and they can always go back and look for it. It's always there for them. So that's why I use Buildium. And it's simple to use. It's not that expensive. I also use a security service to monitor the cameras. I'm not going to sit there and watch cameras all day. So I
Smart.
use a security service, and that security service also will come if somebody needs to be removed. They come and put them out. They do all of that part that I don't want to do. I've been talking to them now about moving people in. So that way there's a direct, when you're moving in, you know that there's a security service. And if you don't do what you're supposed to, you know they coming to put you out.
Love that.
It's actually a big, it's a big stress reliever for me because I'm moving everybody in. And I'm running to, because I have right now, I'm in a 1 bedroom. You can kind of see the cameras up where this one is actually almost finished. They putting the furniture in now. But this unit will take a family or somebody that's homeless, that has a mother or father that has 2 children, 10 and under is what I stay in for the 1 bedrooms. They move them in instead of me moving them. They move them in, and if there's an issue, they can see it right away, and they can come and ask them to be removed. So you all's system that you use for the licensing, the house rules, the security cameras, those documents, them 3 documents alone has tremendously helped me because I wouldn't know where to begin to write any of that. The attorney that I used for evictions, when I had to do an eviction for a tenant, when I had regular tenant, went through you all's license agreement, and changed probably 3 or 4 words or added a line or two. He really did not have to change much to it because it's pretty much set up for an individual to come in and take you all's information. But it's best to make sure that it fits your state guidelines, and that's all he did was check to make sure that it fell into Indiana's law and Illinois laws. So if I did want to go over to Illinois and buy any properties, and a lot of the organizations do ask us to actually open up in Illinois, and I'm thinking about it, but it just makes everything so much simpler to actually do all the setups for somebody to come in and just fall in place and take care of those things for you.
Yeah, and it's really just a template that's built off of what worked for Andy. So, you take it. Absolutely, I agree. If definitely have a lawyer in your state look this over, make sure it's good. But yeah, it's what's been working for him for a very long time.
It's working for me right now.
Yeah. So yeah, you've actually had to put this to use. I want to dive into that in a second, but again, for the investors out there, they just heard you talk about having a security team remove people. Every landlord out there has probably dealt with a problem tenant, and they just went, wait, what? You could just remove people if they're not following the rules. So, Andy, why don't you break that down for the people?
Yeah, I'll break it down real easily. If you go to a hotel and you check in and you start getting crazy and rowdy and everything else, do they have to file an eviction on you? No. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. Also, when you go to a hotel, do you sign a lease or do you sign a license agreement? Notice what Brandon has up on the screen right there. And that is our license agreement. And mind you, Brandon, download it and just show it to some of the people right there. this isn't something that we just came up with randomly, right? This is like years and years and years and years of tweaks, right? Okay, well, where do we come up with those tweaks? Well, first we have an attorney draft it, and then we go through an issue, and then we add something else in there, and then we go through another issue, and then go through another issue, add something else in there. So it's a series of tweaks, over years and years and years and years. The hold harmless agreements. I mean, guys, I think my hold harmless in there. What about infestations? I mean, so these are things that we've got in there, and no matter
That's
what,
a Texas thing for sure.
yeah, even if it's black and white and it's in there, the law isn't black and white, right? You could still have code compliance come out. You might still have to evict somebody and go in front of a judge. And these judges, by the way, it's kangaroo courts. They don't necessarily follow the law. But what you do have is you have a license agreement and everything is spelled out in black and white. I recommend that you record the signing of these documents. So you're putting these people on notice so that when they do call you and they're like, oh, I've got roaches, you're like, boom, you send them a snippet of this. Well, why did you sign this? Number one. Number two, why do you have trash all over your house and food all over your house? Like, that attracts roaches. So we're going to give you the black and white way of running the business, but there's a nuance and there's an art to it as well, which, we're kind of talking about right now.
One thing that most people miss especially when I'm doing the intake on them, is the very first line. This is not a lease. So you have to go through and explain that to them and tell them it's not your traditional lease. There's rules and regulations that's going to go attached to this license agreement. This only gives you the right to live here. You cannot have mail come here. You cannot bring furniture in our place. You only can bring clothes, food. That's all you're allowed to bring in here. If that's a problem for you, do not sign this, because I'm going to go through this with you. And I sit in front of one of the cameras while I'm doing a paperwork. So that way I can record it. And then and I let them know that is when we get to the camera disclosure part of it, I let them know that this whole scene has been recorded, and we take this and put it in your your building account, so you can actually see that recording of signing and somebody's going through the documents with you to make sure you have a complete understanding of what you're signing. So you can come back later and say you didn't have a complete understanding of it.
Yeah, guys. So this is, as Andy said, we're not leasing space. All we're doing is licensing space to these folks. As you can see, and as Donald mentioned, it's very clear that it's not a lease. It says right here, if they violate the rules, they're going to be considered a trespasser. And this is what gives Donald the rights to have a security team, which is great, by the way, Donald. That's awesome. I know Andy and team kind of do their own security, but yeah, if someone breaks the rules, then you're under this agreement, this legal agreement, that they could be removed.
Want to learn more about the future real estate? Sign up for your free training material at www.grouphomeriches.com.